Okay, guys, it's that time. Let me flip the other camera. Boy, I didn't expect that either. Whoa, what did I just do? I did something wrong. Boom. All right, there we go. We got Instagram too. Happy Sunday. So I got back a little late, but that's to be expected. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Defender history. So I'm going to go through that because it gets really confusing for a number of people. And in fact, I had not one, not two, but three different people this week send me a message. I could sense the disappointment and everything. I get a lot of individuals that will send me messages and ask about maintaining their vehicle, or they'll send me a link to a vehicle they're getting ready to purchase, a Defender, and asking my opinion on it, or sending me a link to a vehicle they just recently purchased and asking, what kind of modifications they can do. So hopefully they're watching tonight, and well, maybe you're thinking about buying a Defender, so maybe this will help you as you're doing the shopping process, because it can get so confusing. Not just confusing in the price, why are some so inexpensive and why are some so super expensive, but what exactly are you buying? So I'm going to talk about that tonight. But before I get started, so a question to you guys. Who got the chance to actually see Maxim, the white D90 with the Arctic package? Who? Anybody see that video that we just recently put out? Let me move my messages here so I can see that. So there we go. All right, cool. All right, so video on my Instagram that I just recently put, which is the Maxim, the white D90 with the roll cage, black interior, white stitch. I have to say that build was that was a lot of fun to build. It was enjoyable, and so cool. Well, I got to see it, so excellent. And yep, Steve got to see it. So I had a number of phone calls today. Well, actually, this weekend was crazy. Had a lot of phone calls over the weekend, starting on Friday when I put that video out. A lot of individuals that were, a lot of people saying, I want it. And I'm like, well, that one's already gone. So anyway, so yeah, that one's already gone, but I can definitely build one for you. So I want you to mark your calendar, definitely. I think we're going to come out of this COVID craziness hopefully soon. And June 18th through the 20th is when we have the Rovers in the Woods. Is it? Yeah, it's not Rovers and Gents in the Woods. Just want to clarify that. I don't want any more grief over that name. But Rovers in the Woods, June 18th through the 20th. Camp out. I mean, why not? I mean, I'm going to have one of my Defenders set up with the tent on top. So definitely, come camp out. And so Becky's asking on Facebook. What's on Facebook, Becky? So did I forget to do something on Facebook? I hope not. But anyway, so June 18th through the 20th, Rovers in the Woods. Mark the calendar. If you don't want to camp out, if you're saying, not me, I'm not going to camp out, I don't want to sleep outside because the coyotes might get me or whatever, then go ahead and book your hotel now. I'm sure they'll let you cancel if something comes up, but I would say you definitely go ahead and get that hotel booked. Okay? So as we go through tonight, if you have any questions, let's make this a two-way conversation. I wasn't able to grab my seltzer, so I won't be burping on you guys tonight. But I've been running. I'm kind of like scatterbrained right now. So Brian and I went out running around. Brian is the buddy of mine that's in the Jeep, his Jeep Rubicon. And so we went and did some trails and had some fun there. And boy, it's icy. It was a little crazy. But we're supposed to get hit with a major snowstorm, is what I'm hearing. And we'll see. So Becky's asking the D90 Maxim. Yeah, it's on Facebook. I put it on Facebook, uploaded it there. You see the video driving through the snow. Let me give you a little detail about the truck, about the build too, because I did get a lot of questions. It's the snow falling off of Enzo since I was out driving it. So what it is 35-inch tires. It has a suspension lift. I believe we lifted it by 2 inches. And yeah, that's right, 2 inches. But the sway bars on it, the shocks, the springs, the bushings, everything works together, meaning that it wasn't like we were just grabbing stuff off the shelf, that everything complements one another. So if you watch the video, and by the way, there is a longer form video that will be coming out this upcoming week of Maxim, the D90, the white D90. But if you watch the suspension, and you can see how because it's where I'm running it. I actually had it through the backyard is where I did the video at. But where I'm running it through the backyard, I don't want to take it out of the road. The roads are just like nasty and sandy and all that stuff. But watch the suspension and how it's moving and how it's taking the bumps, that it's going over the bumps. Am I making you guys dizzy yet when I'm doing this for you? All right, am I? Okay. But anyway, just watch the suspension. Watch how the tires are working. But then watch what I'm doing in the truck. I mean, watch how I'm actually moving around in the truck. Or let me rephrase that. Watch how much I am not moving around in the truck. The steering wheel is just like this, just a little bit. And it just looks like I'm just sitting there steady, which is true. I am. So pretty cool suspension. But do go to helderburg.com and check out Maxim. Uploaded a lot of pictures. I will actually have more pictures uploaded tomorrow of this build. But really happy with the build. Really excited. Upcoming though, some builds that you guys will be seeing really soon. That's upcoming. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, which apparently you guys do, because that's how we got together here. But you'll see some of the builds coming out. So we have a Skoda blue, which is like a light blue with Savannah interior, which is an off-white interior. Just a hint of like a, let's say a cream color to the interior, but it's a basket weave interior, which is really cool because you don't see that. And that's what I love. I love building Defenders that's completely different than anybody else. So anyway, Skoda blue with an off-white interior, basket weave, the old style seats, which actually has the separate headrest on it. And but look at the fixtures on it, meaning the hinges and the door handles and the license plate light in the back, which actually has a camera built into it, by the way. The mirror arms are not on it yet. Mirror arms, we're still waiting for those to be milled. But the mirror arms are also aluminum, but they have, what do you call them, puddle lights in them. So what that means is they have LED lighting in the mirrors. So when you unlock the truck with the remote door lock, or when you disarm the alarm system in it, it turns on the little puddle lights. It shines the little light down beside the door. And what do you think? Will it have the Helderburg logo in it, the H in it? You better believe it will. So anyway, so that's Skoda blue with the tan soft top and the off-white interior. That's on the way. That should be here in February. Also have, what do we have? We have the black Puma Autobiography. Recreated that one again, except the original one I created a couple of years ago. It's more advanced than the one that I did a couple of years ago. More advanced in the suspension, more advanced with the turbo, more advanced with the cylinder head. But a lot of thought and consideration was put into the suspension. And I'll tell you that our suspensions have definitely changed just over the last 6 months. I mean, that's something that we've been really focused on. And not only the suspension, but the braking. So a lot of thought went into the Puma Autobiography, which is Beluga black, which, as you guys know, you hear me talk about Beluga. Beluga is a black paint with no metallic, but it's so black that it has a blue undertone, just like a beluga whale. Say beluga black really quick, guys. So anyway, and it has a chorus gray top. It has black interior with white diamond stitching, so white contrast. Beautiful truck. So that one's coming. That will be here in February also. So there you go. I got the Skoda blue soft top here in February, and Puma Autobiography and Beluga black here in February. But also have two Keswick greens. So look on my Instagram, you'll see the Keswick greens, soft tops, by the way. That will be here. And then what else is going to be here? I don't know. I can't even think of all that's going to be here. So anyway, there. This week I will be doing pictures of the Montalcino Red D110. So be on the lookout for that. Well, I say this week. We're supposed to get hit with a snowstorm. And they're saying 2 inches, 4 inches, and then I just read right before we went live, and they're saying 20 inches. So I don't know, who knows? I mean, that's the only job that you can have and be 95% of the time incorrect and still keep your job. So with that said, all right, so tonight let's talk about the history of the Land Rover Defender. And yes, Steve, let's hope that the Keswick will be here too. We're working quickly on it. So let's hope that it will be here. Let me readjust my Instagram side of things. There you go, guys. All right, excellent, excellent. All right, so moving on, the history of Land Rover Defender. So let me kind of back up and let me tell you a little bit about Land Rover in a sense of where a lot of people get confused. And it's the Land Rover series truck. So Land Rover created this farm truck. Notice I say farm truck. It was also a military truck in a sense. But it was primarily created for farmers, and it was called the series, Land Rover series. And they went through the various models, the last model being, and I won't get into the specifics and all that, but the last model, let's just say the last model was the Series 3. So in the 80s, in 1980, Land Rover again in financial trouble. British Leyland was the company that owned them. And they were in and out of financial trouble a lot. The reason that they were in financial trouble is because their underpowered Land Rover Series 3 was an underpowered truck. It didn't have conveniences on it. It didn't have heated seats. It missed a lot of different things. The windshield wiper system was very archaic. It just really missed a lot. It was also a leaf spring truck, and you've seen that. Leaf springs are the springs under the truck that run, that there's layers of them that create leaves where they're stacked on top of each other, which leaf springs don't drive very nice. They don't have the articulation, so if you're doing off-road, it doesn't really let that wheel drop down the way it should. It's a really old school style of suspension. In fact, if you've ever looked at a wagon, like a wagon that's pulled by horses, when you watch the Westerns, you'll see that the wagon has leaf springs on it. That's how old, archaic the suspension system is. So that was the Land Rover Series 3. So Toyota started taking market share. Land Rover was in trouble because of this underpowered vehicle. So that was in the 80s. In fact, in 1980, Land Rover lost their revenue by 25%. So that was a drastic decrease in money. And I mean, quite honestly, they were pretty much ready to go bankrupt. So what they did is they said, we got to go to development. Think and keep in mind what's happening. The series truck that was built many years ago, when you hear Land Rover Defender, and you'll hear people say this, Land Rover Defender's been around for 70 years. No, the Defender hasn't been around for 70 years. The concept of the truck, meaning the series prior to it, was around because the Land Rover series was built back in the 40s. I think it was in 1946. So the Willys Jeep was actually built prior to it, just a few years prior, meaning Jeep did come out before Land Rover. And Land Rover said, well, that's I don't know if they said this, but let's just say they said, that's a pretty cool design. Maybe we need to do that. So that's where it actually started. So the Land Rover series truck did borrow a lot of ideas and design from the Willys Jeep. So 1980, they lose a lot of money and 25% of the revenue. So they go to the drawing board and they're like, we got to create something. So what they came up with was the Land Rover 110. And that's what they called it, the Land Rover 110. It was not the Defender, even though it became the Defender. So in 1983 was the first year that the Land Rover 110 came out. It was also known as the 110. It was, and you can kind of tell I don't know if you guys can really see, but you probably can't. But if you look at a Land Rover and you look at the front of it, you'll see right under the hood, there's this little flat spot and it would say Land Rover right there. And it would say Land Rover 110. So that was in 1983 that this vehicle came out. There was some pretty good changes to the Land Rover 110 in 1983 over the Series 3 truck. Some of the things that they did is they had a little wider, and you can get really confused between the Land Rover 110 and the Series truck. But again, it was called Land Rover 110, which for all essential purposes was the Defender. It looks just like the Defender. Not a Defender like what we build. I mean, some things that we do with the wheel arches and the bump in the hood and all that was later on in their history. So 1983 Land Rover 110 comes out. It had an underpowered engine, but it did offer things that was made it much more drivable. One of the things that they put in the Land Rover 110 is they got rid of the leaf springs and they went to coil springs. So 1983 was the first year they went to the coil springs. Coil springs is just that. It looks like a spring that's in a coil. So there's one at each corner on each wheel. And what the coil spring does is it makes the truck much more drivable, much more comfortable, much more roadworthy, and it also gives that articulation, you know, like with some of us, not me, okay, yeah, 3 Instagram posts before, that we show how that the one wheel will fall so down, you know, go so far down and still be on the ground. Well, that's the articulation. So that's what happened. One of the things that happened with the Land Rover 110 was leaf springs. They also added additional things in there. For example, they had sprayers on the headlights. They had a better wiper motor. They had the wiper system. They started offering a cassette radio, and it was they took a lot of the design elements from the series. But one of the things that you'll notice about the Land Rover 110 or the Defender versus the series truck is the grill's almost flush with the headlights. The series trucks, you'll see the grill's back a little farther. So that's one of the ways to tell, because the series truck does look a lot like a Defender or a Land Rover 110. So Land Rover 110 came out in 1983. It was the first one to come out. In 1984 is when they launched the 90, the Land Rover 90. And notice how I'm saying Land Rover 110, Land Rover 90. That's what they called it, and that's how it was called. It was not called the Defender. So these advances, they were getting better and better, and in fact, they started to sell a lot of them. They were selling a number of them, but the Defender, the Land Rover 110, was basically a remake of the farmer's truck. But a lot of families started to realize, wow, this is a pretty cool vehicle in the sense that I can haul my family, I can go and do groceries. It's basically a station wagon is what it was. And there was different variants that they did. And what I mean by different variants, like the Land Rover 110, they also had the Land Rover, it was the Land Rover 110 station wagon. That's what you guys know as the Defender 110. That's the station wagon, the full, you know, the cab on the back. But they also had the Land Rover 110 pickup. They had, which is the Land Rover 110 pickup was the single cab and not the double cab. The double cab came later on. In 1984, they also launched, which was the 127. You guys know that as a Land Rover 130, or your Defender 130 is what you know it as. But so the Land Rover 127 comes out, and the Land Rover 127 was actually the Land Rover 110. Except what they did is they put a bed on the back of it. So they didn't really increase the wheelbase the way they did later on. It was just a 110 that was redone. But what they did, Land Rover created this special shop. So it was called the Special Vehicles Unit. And that's where they were doing all these customizations. So early on, Land Rover was really into bespoke, custom built, because they realized that this Land Rover 127, the 130, was being used as an ambulance, as tow trucks. It was being used by utility companies because they were like, wow, this is really cool that we have this high capacity pickup truck is what it is. And there was a number of, like I said, utility companies and a number of companies that were buying it. However, it was underpowered. It didn't really go. But the thing why these companies continued to buy it is because the way it was set up with the engine and the electrical system, it was a 24 volt system, that's what they needed. back then. Back then, I say back then like it was so far ago. I was in school there. I was in high school at that time. But anyway, so that's what happened. 1984 is when the 90 came out and the 130 came out. And then, so they're doing pretty well with production. They're actually borrowing, designs from other companies, and they're advancing these trucks. So the Defender, does anybody know what year the Defender actually started? Does anybody know that? So let me give you guys, I'll tell you what, you guys tell me, what year did the Land Rover actually start? Or let me rephrase that, sorry. I was reading a message too. The Defender, what year did the Defender actually start? Okay, I got 1979, so nope, not 1979, because the Land Rover 110 wasn't created until 1983, and the Land Rover 90 was not created until 1984. I'm reading all these messages. Sorry, guys. So the Land Rover 10 was 1983, and then the Land Rover 90 was 1984. So what year did the Defender actually, when they changed the name? Okay, so anyway, you guys aren't guessing it. It was 1990 is when the name Defender actually began. But they had the trucks. I mean, they were doing these trucks. The reason they did it in 1990, where they created the Defender name in 1990, is because that's when the Discovery, the Land Rover Discovery, came out. So 1990, they're like, okay, we have to change the name, so we're going to call it the Defender 110. We're going to call it the Defender 90. So that's when the Defender actually began. So 1990, here it is, Defender's rolling. Sales, they're starting to struggle a little bit again, thanks to British Leyland, thanks to their electronics. So, and that's why the Defender has really anything Land Rover has a bad reputation, is because it's associated with the other projects they did. So, for example, like the Discovery or the Range Rover. So, and there was a number of manufacturers, meaning like MG, Triumph, that used the same type of electronics, and it's called Lucas Electronics. So Lucas Electronics, not the most dependable, but the Defender didn't have a computer. In the early stages, they didn't get a computer until later on. So they're plotting along and everything with 1990, where it becomes the Defender. And then a little later on is when they rolled out the new motor, meaning that they ended up with the 300 TDI that you guys hear me talking about so much, which is a bulletproof motor, great motor. Oh, that's what all I have is 300 TDIs, but wonderful motor. So there you go. Defender actually started to launch its name in 1990. So with that, you know what time it is, guys, right? So it's that time, and Instagram guys, you're not going to get to see it, but here it goes. All right, so that was just out of the blue. So hopefully you guys like gadgets as much as I do, and I did. I got a new toy, new gadget. And who's into cameras? Are any of you guys into cameras? That's what I want to know. So I picked up this one, and you know what? There's a lot of similarities with a Leica and a Land Rover. It really is. I mean, amazing company, Leica, by the way. Leica definitely had some financial troubles over the years, but last year they set all kinds of records. And the reason being is the Japanese cameras, and I think this is really a lesson too to learn and pay attention to. But Leica did not want to change their ways. And Leica wanted to continue building manual focus cameras. They weren't so worried about, how many frames per second can you take. And I'm talking digital, by the way, right now. I'm not even going to talk about film because this is a digital camera. So, but I love companies like this. Love companies like Leica, companies like what Land Rover was and used to be. But Leica struggled a long time and went out of business almost a number of times because the Japanese companies like Canon and Sony and Nikon, primarily Nikon and Canon, really took a lot of market share because their digital cameras, really the sensors worked really well. They got into the resolution game. You could do some crazy amount of so many shots per second. I don't know why you need to do, 9 shots per second. None of us, it just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, but that's just people. People love gadgets, the latest and greatest gadgets. I mean, a lot of us do. But like I said, we're going to stay true. We're going to stay true to what we believe a camera should be. Typical Germans, right? And so I picked this one up, and this is a digital camera, but this is called the QP, and which I found one that was still in the box. This came out. It was kind of interesting. This came out a few years ago. But I'm having a lot of fun with this camera. If you could feel it, you'd be like, wow. But it's all metal. It's heavy. It's just, the craftsmanship is beautiful. But Leica's really known for their lenses, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous because I've always been into cameras for a long time. It's pretty funny. I bought this very special lens called a Leica Noctilux. And this Leica Noctilux lens is known as the bokeh king, where it actually makes the background go kind of fuzzy, where your subject's really in focus and the background just falls out. And I bought it's called a 50 millimeter 1.0 Noctilux. I paid quite a bit for it. It was quite a bit. It was in the thousands, and it was like $5,400. And used it for a while. It's a really big, beefy lens, heavy, and I'm like, I'm not really using it that much. I'll go ahead and sell it. So I sold it. I sold it for like $5,400, and I started getting the bug again for a Noctilux, and I went back to get one, and now they're $7,000. I mean, the lens is like 20 years old. But anyway, goes to show you, when you build something that's a quality product and you stay true to what you believe, that there's a pretty good chance that people will come back around, that they'll get away from the novelty of things and just come back around and say, you know what, there's something true, that this is, I mean, a Leica camera, a Land Rover, a Patek watch, a Rolex or whatever, it becomes basically an heirloom. So anyway, that's my gear of the week. So I was out shooting with this today, so you'll get to see some pictures of it, or some pictures that it created. And it's not one of those, oh, let's get 50 megapixels or 40 megapixels. It's not that. It's it doesn't have a lot of megapixels, but megapixels is kind of like horsepower. Megapixels really doesn't matter when it comes to the quality of an image and all that, because the vast majority, I mean, let's be honest, guys, how many of us are really taking pictures and blowing them up really big to like 40 by 60? We're taking pictures and we're putting them on Instagram or Facebook. It doesn't take much to do that. But anyway, I'm going to do a heck of a lot more than just put it on Instagram. So there we go. All right. So with that, I'm going to open it up to you guys for some questions, since we talked about gear of the week. And I know it's a mess behind me, but I'm organizing my camera gear and pulling everything out so I don't order stuff. I'm like one of those that I'll order things 2 and 3 times. I duplicate order stuff because I forget that I had it. Maybe I'm just getting senile. But anyway, so I mean, continuing on, Land Rover Defender, where they continued on. 1990 was the first year they started using that name. Then in 94 is when the 300 TDI came out, and then it was a little later on, which was 1998 is when the TD5 came out. They've been owned by Ford, they've been owned by BMW, so they've been through a lot. Now, I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, Land Rover, Range Rover, yeah, they're still around, there's no doubt, but now they're owned by a company called Tata Motors in India. The new Defender is actually built in, I believe it's Slovakia or something like that. So anyway, I would say Google that. But and take a look. But anyway, so they continued on, and the last year, so I'm going to open it up to you guys. Anybody have any idea when was the last year? When did the last Land Rover Defender, the classic one, like what I drive and what we build, what was the last year that was actually built? Does anybody know? When was the last year of manufacture of one of these trucks? So I'll let you guys guess real quick, because it's pretty surprising. So does anybody know? Anybody know? So anyway, that's right. Steve got it correct. 2016 was the last year of Land Rover Defender. It was January 2016 when the last one rolled off the line. And it's pretty interesting too. No, it was 2016 was the last year. January 2016 was the end of it. I believe it was January 29th, if I'm not mistaken, of 2016. So Land Rover actually did create, so I've heard this a number of times, like people will go out and look at the new Defender and they're like, oh, it's not the same, I don't like it. But Land Rover did a special edition, took the old style, the old body, and they completely redid it and modernized it and put a lot into it, and basically made it like a really modern vehicle. But we can't get them in the States, so don't even think about it. So as Land Rover went through, I'll give you some really quick tidbits of everything. So it was, I believe it was 2007. A lot of times I get asked about the dash. That people are like, oh, I like the other dash. That they'll see the pictures of the Pumas, the later on in the Land Rovers where they're looking, and they'll see this different dash where the vents are in the center up high. There's kind of an infotainment system, that the gauges are a little more digital looking. And they'll see that dash, which does look like a more modern dash, and they want that dash. That was in 2000, I believe that was in 2000, either 2007 or 2012. I can't remember which year that actually happened. But that's when the newer dash came out. But it was really interesting because that new dash, if you look at that dash, and if you go look at a Ford Transit, I don't know how many of you guys have seen a Ford Transit Connect, but a Ford Transit Connect are those vans that Ford makes that looks a lot like a Sprinter van. And but if you look at the two dashes, you're going to go, whoa, why do they look so alike? Well, that's because Ford owned Land Rover for a time being, and they started putting parts into the Defender that was actually off of the Ford Transit Connect. I mean, even the motor was one of the things later on that they used. So kind of interesting. That dash, that more modern dash, just to give you my take on it, where I've driven a couple of them that have that dash, I don't really care for that dash. And the reason being is it comes out so much farther versus the original style dash. It just, you feel like you have more room. It's further away from you. It's just a little more comfortable. The later dash is really close to you. It makes you feel claustrophobic. And I mean, really, truth be told, I mean, the amount of room that you have in a Defender, while it's sufficient, I mean, it's not like a Denali where, your wife, your passenger, sitting way over there. I mean, she can actually slap the crap out of you if she needs to. So, but look at the dash. You'll see the gauges in there that are just like the Transit Connect. They also did that in the Discovery. You'll see the Discovery has a lot of those gauges too, and that's because of Ford, and they just started pulling stuff off the shelf and said, oh, this is how we're going to put it together. So that's one of the things about the dash and the gauges. So I prefer the old style gauges, which look like the Smith gauges, which is really cool. All right, guys. So any questions for me? I know this one was kind of short tonight, but I didn't want to bore you with all of the details. And it's interesting that I've got like a stack of books over here, and probably, what is it? I don't know, 8-10 books over here talking about the history of Land Rover, and it's pretty interesting when you read the history of Land Rover that the dates and the specifics actually change from book to book. And so it's interesting how that is, that on which motors were used and which motors weren't used, and what year something came out, and all that. So it's kind of it's interesting. So here's some other info about Land Rovers. One of the things that, and I said I would talk about this, is through history, as Land Rover was struggling financially, one of the things they did, and you've heard me talk about this, is where they said, you know what, we need the petrol motor, so gasoline motor. And they bought the design from Oldsmobile, which was their V8, and it was a design that General Motors did away with. And I believe it was 1963. It has an aluminum block and aluminum head. So they bought that design. Land Rover being in financial trouble also, different times, things that they did is they basically signed contracts with various companies saying, hey, you could become a builder, a distributor, a manufacturer of the Land Rover Defender. Because Land Rover Defender over the years and the Land Rover series trucks have been very successful, very popular, and have done extremely well. So they've seen that as an opportunity to be able to make money. One of those companies is called Santana, which is in Spain. And a Santana truck looks a lot like a Land Rover Defender, British Defender. Now let me say this. Let me clarify. I've had some people try to lash out at me, and lash all you want, guys. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I'm an old curmudgeon. It doesn't bother me. Apparently you have too much time. Yes, I'm talking about the things I get through Instagram, the messages. So Santana, the Land Rover Defender, I call that a counterfeit Defender. It's not really counterfeit. What it really is Land Rover gave them, approval and signed an agreement with them to let them build the series trucks, and then later on the 110s and the Defenders. So that was a long-going contract. And Santana built a pretty good series through the series, like Series 2 and Series 3. They did a pretty good job on building those trucks. I mean, they did a good job, is what I've read. I don't know personally, it's just what I've read. So I'm just repeating what I've read on that. But Santana said, you know what, we can start to cut Land Rover out of the picture a little bit. Apparently Land Rover's contract wasn't so good. And they started manufacturing some of their own parts. In fact, they made a transmission that was pretty good that Land Rover actually bought from Santana and used in the Defender. But as time went on, and then when the Defender started, and Santana was building those, started building the 110s and the 90s and stuff, then that's when the quality control, that's when the things started to slip a little bit. They're using a completely different suspension, a completely different drivetrain, completely different motor, and all that. So, and they were manufacturing their own parts. Therefore, when you go to buy parts for a Santana, you're probably going to have to do some modifications. Talking like body parts, doors, that type of stuff. But if you're wanting to buy a turbo or whatever, it might be a little hard to do that because the turbos are not designed for the motor in the Santana. So that was one of the things that Land Rover did. So look for a Santana. One of the telltale signs that it's a Santana is if you can see pictures of the suspension, the Santana, when it looked like the Defender, actually has leaf springs. They don't have the coil springs. But so that's one of the things that they did. The next thing that they did is South Africa. And South Africa also started manufacturing and was like a reseller or whatever you want to call it. Not really a reseller, but kind of. So South Africa was doing pretty well with the Defenders. In fact, they started doing some pretty cool modifications. And South Africa is where they started their design process with the BMW motor. And they were, which was, I believe, in 1996, 97, that they were using this BMW motor that upped the horsepower. They had to do a number of modifications to get this BMW motor to work well, but it worked well. They didn't build many of those. I think it was 96, 97. It was a gasoline motor, by the way. But South Africa also started to do some different customized designs. One of those designs that's really cool that possibly you've seen is the 6x6, which looks like a D130, except it's like a, it has 2 axles in the back. So they designed that part of the Bespoke process because they wanted to be able to where it could have more of a payload. Keep in mind, the D130 was designed for like utility companies and as ambulances and fire trucks and all that, and tow trucks. And so they said, all right, let's modify this. So there's not a lot of the trucks out there. Then there's a number of companies that do that modification that will actually put the 2 axles in the back. So now you have six wheels rolling. So that's what happens there. So that was the South African version of the Land Rover. And then you go to the next one, which is Turkey. And like when me and my partner talk, and we will see these trucks on eBay that look just like a Defender, and or whatever Hemmings, and a lot of times you'll see them in a double cab variation. If you look at Hayrod, this truck right behind me, and you see it on the website, just go to Helderburg. A double cab variation. There's one that's in Turkey that they make it, and we call it the Turkish Turd. So I know we sound like we're 8 years old, but so the Turkish Defenders are where I had good things to say about Santana, I have nothing good to say about the Turkish Defenders. I have nothing for you there. So anyway, so there was a lot of these different contracts and these things that, and that's why I call it the counterfeit Defenders, that you can really fall victim to. And I don't know, maybe these people that are on eBay, maybe these people that are selling the cars on the different third-party websites, maybe they don't understand, maybe they don't know exactly what they're selling. Okay, it looks like a Defender, so they list it as a Defender even though it's not a Defender. So again, look for those leaf springs, then it's probably a Santana. Santana series trucks, not so bad. Santana Defenders, yeah, I mean, they're fun. You'll have fun with them and everything. You just might struggle trying to get the parts for them is all it is. But there's no reason that, if you got one, and just drive it until the wheels fall off of it. Enjoy what you have. Right-hand drive Defenders. Well, that's what Land Rover was building a lot of, was the right-hand drive. But however, they were building the left-hand drive. And they were building the left-hand drive for, like Poland and Italy and France and a lot of different places. So that's what I start with, is the original left-hand drives. So you're probably saying, all right, how can I, as Steve's asking right now, how can you tell what a Turkish Turd is? And VIN numbers. The VIN number is going to be your quickest, easiest way to be able to tell the difference. So if you're shopping for a truck, you definitely want to do a search for the VIN decoder, and put in that VIN number and see what you can find out. So Land Rover's had a long history, a lot of great designs, a lot of different variations, like the double cab back here. But they didn't build many of the double cab pickup truck, which is a D110 with a smaller truck bed, but that was a really popular truck. Of course, you guys know about the 130, that's Enzo. There's the D110, like I said, double cab. There's the D110 station wagon. There's the D110 single cab pickup truck. There's the D1 cab, or the D110 3-door, which you'll see on my website too, which makes a beautiful soft top, by the way, which it actually has 2 doors and then the back, which is basically a variation of the D110 single cab pickup. There is the D90, which you guys know, that's a station wagon. There's the D90 single cab pickup truck, which is really cool. It looks really cool, by the way. I was going to build one of those, and then I'm like, I'd probably never sell it, so I'm not going to build it. There was moving in, there was the different, well, we talked about 90s, 110s, 130s. There was the 147. So they made a longer one. So they made a lot of different ones. In fact, it was in, I think I got the date right here. I'm not sure. There's the D90 amphibian. So, and what they did with the D90 amphibian was it was part of one of the regatta, and I forget what the regatta was called. But Land Rover did this design, I believe it was in 1990, no, I forget what year, it was in the 90s. But they made an amphibian, you should Google this too, but and when I say amphibian, it's a D90 that's set up to cruise across the lake. So they made one of those. They also made a 3 Series in the special program, the Special Vehicles Unit. It was 3 D130s to actually carry, I forget the name of the missiles, but it was for the military to be able to carry the missiles. One truck was for the missiles, one truck was for equipment, and one truck was for the men. So they've done a lot, some really cool designs. But anytime I find a truck, a Defender that is a special, and it has a special badge on it under the hood, it's called Special Vehicles. I love them. And in fact, Elizabeth is one of those trucks, and it was made in a different place. It was basically the Bespoke shop. So there you go. So a lot to look at, a lot to research. Just read. Any history books that you can recommend? Yeah, just go to Amazon and just search for a Land Rover Defender. You'll see a lot of different books, and just start ordering some of the books. They're not expensive. There's also you can do a search. There's like the museum that you can search, which is like the British heritage, and you can read about all that. And that's one of the things that we do with our Defenders, is when we buy them in Italy or France or Poland, we have to deregister it. It has a registration in that country. We have to deregister it in that country. We bring it into England. We do our restoration. Before COVID, at least, we would do this. And then we will register it in England. And what that does is it actually gives us a little more history of the truck and certifies it as a true, authentic British Defender. Not a Santana, not a, anything like that, and not a Turkish one. It's a true British Defender, and that's all we buy is the true British ones. So there you go. If you're seeing a lot of difference in prices, it is true. If the price is too good to be true, so there you go. Because if someone has a Land Rover Defender that's an original left-hand drive, and it's a true authentic British Defender, and it's not a rust bucket, then you definitely, you're going to pay for it. Keep in mind, why are the prices going up, and why are they going to continue to go up, which I think buying a Defender is probably better than buying gold or buying stocks, in my opinion. At least that's what I keep telling my wife. In 1996, and some of you guys have heard me say this before, they started making fewer of them because they were making Range Rovers and they were making the Discoveries. And so they were selling more of that, and that's why there's less of them. So there you go. And it continued. That trend continued on. While they did make a lot of them over the years, 96 was fewer, 97 fewer, 98 fewer, and it continued on until 2016. But keep in mind, that Defender has to be 25 years old or older to bring in the United States legally. And if it's in Canada, it has to be 15 years old or older to bring into Canada legally. So if you're shopping for one, here's some things you want to educate yourself. I've talked to a number of people over the years that they would buy a Defender and it would have to sit at the border as they tried to resell it because they ended up buying like a 1997 model, and you cannot bring a 1997 model in until it's 25 years old to the date. All right, so I've got some questions. Can you change the entire color of a Defender? I'm looking at a white 110, but really want it gray. So yes, you can change the entire, in fact, my double cab back here, I believe it was blue. So yeah, you can change the entire color of a Defender. To do it properly though, and I'll talk about that, it's a good question by the way. To do it properly, it's a tremendous amount of work, because you need to remove all the glass, you need to remove all the seals, you need to pull the doors, you need to drill the rivets, you need to move the panels, you need to take the door handles off, you need to take the body off of the frame, you need to remove the front wings, the fenders, you just need to disassemble the entire thing to do it properly. Because when you pop the bonnet, the hood, it's important to actually make sure that, well, when you're looking at the builds, this is what I'll tell you. When you look at the build, the different companies and how they do it, when you pop the bonnet, the hood, is the bulkhead, known as a firewall to a lot of us in the States, is the bulkhead the body color, or is everything under the hood painted black? If everything under the hood is painted black, then somebody was cutting some corners. It's not a good quality paint job. So yes, you can change the color, but to do it properly, to do a really good paint job, you're roughly at about $35,000, right about there is where you're at for a good paint job. So that's what's going on there, paint job. So any other questions? Let me see who else is asking. All right, somebody asked what I think about the new Defender. Yeah, it's a new Defender. It looks good, drives good, it's quiet, it's got creature comforts in it, it's comfortable, it's okay. I mean, it's all right, but you know, there's something special about the original Defender and what I like. I mean, you know, the new Defender, anybody can have one. I mean, you go to the lot, you walk around the lot, and you say, well, let me drive the blue one, let me drive the black one, which one do I want? And you go and you drive it, and it drives nice, and it's going to be hopefully reliable and all that. But it's just it's a vehicle that anybody can buy and anybody can get off the lot. What I like about, and this is not a sales pitch, I'm just telling you how I got into it, but what I like about the Defender and what I've done over the years is I get the truck and I can decide, well, I want it to be Havana gray pearl. I want the top to be black. I want the marker lights to be clear. I want a bowler bumper on the front. I want the bowler sill plates on it. I want you know, I want the interior to be chocolate brown with a you know, caramel stitch. So that's the beauty of it. So I can do all of that. And you know, I can decide everything about it. I want a heated windscreen. So I want these type of door handles. I want the leather to look like this. I want these wheels. I want this type of brake system. So you get the picture of what I'm saying. But what I'm really trying to tell you is I can do all of that to a Defender. And then I can drive it. I can have fun. I can enjoy it. It makes people smile. It makes me smile. It's never going to drive like the new 2021 Defender, but it drives great. It drives nice. It's comfortable and everything else with all the updates. People come up and people say, can I take a picture of it? What is it? Tell me about it. What year is it? You mind if I take pictures? And then I'm like, you want to sit in it? Oh my God, really? Yeah. But people love it. But then at the end of the day, or let's just say after a few years, 3, 4 years, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, after I've driven it, and I've driven it a lot, and I go to sell it, but I've put all of this different stuff into it, different leather, different marker lights, different headlights, different grill, different wheels, different tires, and all that, I get all my money out of it. I sell it, and I sell it for more than I actually bought it for, and then the money I invested in it. If you were to do that with any other vehicle on the road, I don't care what it is, and it doesn't have to be the new Land Rover Defender. It could be an Escalade. It could be, quite honestly, it could be the new Bronco. I mean, the new Bronco, I mean, while it's beautiful and it looks cool and everything and it's fantastic, the new Bronco, you do that, you are going to lose a tremendous amount of money. It's a depreciating asset. The new Bronco is that way, you lose money. The new Defender, you lose money. As soon as you drive it off the lot, you lose money. That's all there is to it. A classic Defender, the last 11 years in a row, they've said that this is one of the top 10 cars to buy as an investment. And that's what's happening. They are getting snapped up by people as an investment. And I have a number of clients that are buying, that they get one, then they get a second one, and then they get a third one. I have some that are on their fourth one already. So that's what I love about a vehicle. And you can't do that with a Lamborghini. Lamborghini, you lose money. A Defender, you lose money. A Bentley, you lose money. All of them, you lose money. I can only think of 2 cars you don't lose money. Or not 2 cars. A classic Bronco, you don't lose money. Or in fact, you make money. A classic Land Rover Defender. And then the only other modern day cars would be a Ferrari. So there you go. All right, so that was a long answer. All right, let's see. What else do we got? I'm reading. Any other questions, guys? All right, so I don't really see anything. All right. Yep. Somebody else talking about that they have a new Defender. Yeah, it's great. Just like I have a newer Range Rover. It's great. It's comfortable. It's, the seats do everything I want it to do. It's comfortable. So don't get me wrong. The new Defender, great truck, great vehicle. But other than that, all right, guys. So with that, yeah, I won't even post that comment. Somebody posted a comment on Facebook. So yeah. All right, so June 18th through the 20th, car seats and a class. Okay, so car seats and a classic Defender. Yes, you can do that. So here's the thing. If you do a classic Defender, the car seats, if it's a D110, your car seats had to be forward facing. So if you're doing a D90 or a D110 with the cargo seats in the back, your car seats cannot be side facing. So in other words, you can't use the center facing seats, and you just can't do that. But yes, you can put car seats in a Defender. So there we go. All right, what else do we have? Do you do more D90s or D110s? Pretty close, really. Probably just a little more D90s than I do D110s, I would say. Because counting with the D90s, I do a lot of the soft tops, a lot of those, which really brings that number up. I probably do more soft top D90s than I do hard top D90. I mean D90s, yep. I do some D110 soft tops. Again, 3-door D110 soft top, but I've also done the 5-door D110 soft top. And then we're working on a couple D110 double cabs, which the back actually has the canopy on the back. So there you go. All right, what else do we got? What other questions do we have, guys? Sorry, I'm reading messages on both sides here. I'm going from there. Going once, going twice. So Spencer's asking which watch. This one here. Anybody know which watch that is? It's my James Bond with a little style. It's not a James Bond watch, but it is the Omega Ocean Master. So that's what it is. Okay. Yeah, I like watches. I'm a watch fanatic. So anyway. All right, question. Are there safety benefits to NAS versus rest of world? No. Other than the NAS, as you guys know, some of them had the roll cage, where they put the roll cage on them. So if you have a roll cage on a rest of the world and a roll cage on if you have a roll cage on both of them, they're equally safe. There's no such thing as airbags in a Land Rover Defender, at least the ones that we can get in the States. It's not a thing. There's no such thing as ABS brakes, not a thing you can get. It just simply can't be done. Well, I mean, anything can be done, let's be honest. Anything can be done, but it would be a substantial amount of money and to do that, because they don't have a computer. So to put airbags in there, you would need all the sensors and the bumpers, and you would need a computer to be able to do that. So no airbags. We're real men. will die without airbags, right? But you wonder about that. So no ABS brakes. 90 versus 110. What's more practical? That's a good question, by the way. So here it is. I'm going to pose that question back to you guys. What's more practical, a D90 or a D110? And I know a lot of times we look at them and we go, man, I like the looks of blank, whether it's a D90 or a D110. But which one's more practical? What do you guys think? And as you're thinking about that and going to answer that, I'll say this. How many people are in your family? Husband, wife, or whatever, couple, and how many kids, how many hobbies, what do you need? So if you're a couple and then you have 2 kids, maybe, that's right, we didn't wear helmets or a seatbelt. That's right, I talked about that last week. Mom would do the arm, put the arm out and block you if she had to stop the brakes, hit the brakes hard. So here's the thing. The cargo space of a D90 and a D110 are the same. That's where your space comes. The back seats, the second row is, if your kids are going to sit back there, but chances of your kids sitting in the second row on those seats facing forward is pretty slim. The kids are, if you have a D110 and you have 2 kids or 3 kids, they're going to want to climb in the very back in the cargo area with the center facing seats. I've heard this, I don't know how many times now. That's where they're going to want to go. So do you really need a D110 if you have 2 kids or 3 kids? I don't know. Maybe not. So D90 is pretty practical. It really is. And then you can put the luggage rack on top, and you can haul stuff on top. So you can really use that. Someone said, what did they just say? Somebody said, the longer wheelbase, the more comfortable the ride. It's marginal. The longer wheelbase, the D90 versus the D110, you can tell a difference a little bit. It's not substantial. You can tell the difference, I'll say that. But again, I posed the question of how far are you going to drive? Where are you going? I mean, are you doing a 10-minute commute or a 10-mile commute? If so, are you really gonna are you gonna benefit from the 110? 110 looks cool. D90 looks cool. D90 is probably going to do a little better off-road, because I know with my D130 that off-road, when I'm playing with the out with the Jeep guys, it's some things I get into with the 130 gets a little marginal. But and then here's the thing about the D110 that I'll say this. Leg room is not what you would expect it to be. I mean, you do have leg room, don't get me wrong. It's not like riding in the back of a Porsche 911. You do have leg room, but it's not as much as some people would like. But you have enough. So other than that, okay. What are the must accessories? Well, there was another question about are the roll bars necessary? No, they're not necessary. Honestly, I don't really care for them. I mean, I like them on my D130 on Enzo, but on a D90, D110, I don't really care for them, but they are going to give you more safety. There's no doubt. So that's up to you guys whether or not. Let me see. What else do we have? What are the must accessories or extra bits that you would have on your own daily driver? Oh, boy, that's a hard question. And the reason let me repeat that again. What are the must accessories or the extra bits that you would have on your own daily driver? I already do all of that on mine, and some things that I've done is a good suspension, good shocks, good springs. Anti-sway bars are a must-have. Otherwise, you get all the body roll. It's just kind of sloppy feeling. Comfortable seats, so new seats that are done well. That's really important to me. A really good steering dampener, so when you hit bumps, it doesn't wobble that much. So that's must-haves for me personally. And heated seats. Heated seats are a must. All right, how long a ride can the kids ride in the back before it gets uncomfortable? The kids can ride in the back. Let's put it this way. When I get up in the mornings, I hurt and I ache. I wouldn't be able to do it that long. But the kids can sit back there. It's pretty comfortable. And again, it depends on how big the kids are. There is seat belts in the cargo area and the center facing seats. I'll say that. They could. I've seen kids ride in the back of my D110, and we've done some long trips. I mean, several hours, and they were fine. I mean, but they started moving around. There's a lot of room in the cargo area, so you would see them like disappear from the seats. And then they were laying in the floor and then playing their video games. And I'm like, get back up in the seat, put your seatbelt back on. That type of stuff. But they can ride back there for a while. Keep in mind, the seats are kind of short. They're not real tall. So, but for a kid, depending on the size of the kid, they could ride back there for a significant amount of time. All right, so let's see what else we got. All right, so let's talk about heat and the 110. The diesel, well, I'm not really sure what you mean by that, about heat. I'm thinking you mean, since you say you live in Boston, will it keep you warm in the winter? And the answer is yes, but. So I'll use that. Yes, but. And the reason that I say yes, but is because you'll need to do some things to make the heat work better in a Defender. In the winter, you will want to use what's called a radiator muff. So if you're in a cold climate, you want to be able to have the cover. It's called a radiator muff. It's just a canvas cover. There's different fabrics, but it goes over the front of the radiator. You'll see the 18-wheelers that have their muff over the front of the radiator because it's a diesel motor. Diesel motor runs at a much cooler temperature than a gasoline motor. So you want to have a muff over that. You want to make sure that you have the right thermostat. So you'd want to change the thermostat so it's cycling that hot water at a better rate. And then the next thing you want to do is a heater matrix. So you want to get a more advanced heater matrix. One of the companies that does that is Ali Sport. And it's a bigger heater matrix. It's a quad core heater matrix that actually sticks out of the box, out of the heater box is what I'm talking about. That's going to do better for your heat. And then the next thing is you would want to get someone, or do it yourself, it's really easy, is to remove the heater box. And the opening where the heater box bolts onto the bulkhead on the firewall is actually smaller than the opening on the heater box. So just a little bit of cutting, cut that opening out a little bigger, and then put the heater box back so that flow really does good. Go with a newer heater motor, chances are, because if you've got a truck that's 25, 30 years old, you want to update the motor. There's a better motor. And then the next part you want to do is go to like Mud UK and order the different vents, because the ductwork behind the dash for the heater is really anemic. It's the hosing's really small and the vents are actually really small. Even though they're this big on the dash, they're about this big. So get the different ductwork. And then there's also the little things that go on the side, little vents that will do the side defrost, and will defrost there. So that's what you would have to do for heat. I mean, and that's what I do on all my builds anyway, but that will really help your heating, plus making sure that you do a good level of insulation on the truck, meaning like a lizard spray for insulation, lizard spray for sound deadening, a few layers of butyl rubber, and then a layer of foam, and then of course your nice carpet, and Alcantara suede headliner where it's all butyl rubber up there. And then getting rid of those sliding rear windows in a 110, because those just let air in and out and everything else. And now you've got a good heat system. One of the things that I did on one of my D110s in the past is I added a Webasto heater, which is just this little, looks like a torpedo. I cut a hole in my seat box and then actually plumbed it through the bottom of the truck, and it there's a tap, it goes into my fuel line, and this heater system, you have a remote control and it will cook you out of there. But anyway, it runs off of diesel fuel, and you can set the temperature on it. So that's one of the things that I did with my 110, but that's because I was camping in it, and that's what I did to be able to have another heater system that could run when the truck was off. So that's what I did. So do all that and you'll have a great heating system. So other than that, all right, so that was a lot, guys. I just feel like I was going but anyway, all right, any other questions? All right, all right, okay. All right, guys, mark your calendar. June 18th through the 20th, we will have the Rovers in the woods. And I will tell you that I think I told you last week, but if you weren't here last week, Gavin is working on some additional elements. We are going to have a winch contest, winch pulling contest. We'll have a recovery. We will have the Scottish trials where you'll have to drive your vehicle through basically the cane poles. It's a non-destructive thing. And if you want to get a little rowdy, we do have hill climbs, so we got pretty steep hills. You do have to sign a disclaimer though, because there is a chance that you could end up rolling your vehicle. So if it's something you don't want to do, that's fine. You can watch the rest of us idiots do it. But skeet shooting, as you guys know, I have a sporting clay course here on the property. We have the horses, we have axe throwing. I think we're going to bring archery this year too. Maybe even knife. No, we're not going to do knife throwing. Forget it. But anyway, it's a nice event. Bring your wife, bring your husband, bring whomever, bring a friend. Come hang out. You can camp. You can stay in a hotel, whatever it is. But June 18th through the 20th. But hey, you know what? You're welcome to visit anytime. You don't have to wait for that event. You can always come by, hang out with me and Leo and Lucy, and we can go drive some Defenders and drive off-road and have some fun. So with all that said, guys, thank you for joining me Sunday night. If I can help you in any way, you know how to reach me. I'm easy. I'm out there all the time. So with that, I am going to sign off Instagram first. And now. And to my Facebook friends, have a wonderful night. And I'll be excited to get the video out of Maxim, the D90. You'll see it soon. Talk to you.